Let's start where the gender wars often begin. Chores. The battlefield of who folds the towels, who mows the lawn, and who gets conveniently bad at dishes right around dinner time. Because somewhere along the way, being a man got tied to grills and gutters, and being a man came with a lifetime subscription to emotional labor and Pinterest-worthy lunches. So let's unpack this job description nobody applied for and figure out what makes a task manly besides grunting while you do it. Mowing the lawn, but not touching the towels. Why do we still assign gender to tasks that don't have a biological requirement? No one is born with grill tongs in their hand or genetic inability to fold bath towels. These expectations come from social modeling. Dad does the yard, mom does the laundry, and they stick around like bad Wi-Fi. When talking about the gender job jar, many households still divide chores based on tradition rather than skill, interest, or practicality. Kids absorb it early. Why does mommy cook dinner and daddy fix the car? It becomes the unspoken blueprint for adulthood. It also sets up resentment when people grow up and realize the division isn't actually fair or fulfilling. Modern families are increasingly flipping the script. Stay-at-home dads are more common, and women are dominating in trades and tech fields. Shout out to the men baking sourdough without making it a redemption arc. Shout out to the women building furniture without narrating it for Instagram. The weaponized incompetence of "I don't know how to do that" becomes a get out of responsibility card, especially when someone conveniently forgets how a dishwasher actually works. It's less about ability and more about expectation. If you mess it up just once, you'll never be asked again. Genius, but also a little shady. So is it tradition or simply a bad habit? Some traditions were built for survival in a different world. Others were built on hierarchy. Either way, they're worth questioning. If your reason for doing or not doing something starts with "because that's how it's always been," that's your cue to check the expiration date. So we've unpacked who's supposed to do what, but what happens when someone steps outside the script? Welcome to the Hypocrisy Olympics, where everyone's juggling double standards and nobody wins except maybe awkward silence and passive-aggressive text messages. That is your bargain brand wellness take. Bossy versus bold. Assertiveness is applauded in men, but critiqued in women as too aggressive, intimidating, or bitchy. Flip the genders on a workplace scenario, and suddenly the exact same behavior has wildly different labels. It's not just annoying, it limits who gets the lead and how they're perceived when they do. When talking about the dad bonus versus the mom expectation, a dad takes his kid to the grocery store and gets praised just like he adopted an entire orphanage. Meanwhile, a mom doing the same isn't questioned if the kid's hair isn't brushed. We've normalized different bars of performance, and it messes with how we evaluate parenting and ourselves. When talking about the emotional labor ledger, who plans a birthday party? Who keeps track of dentist appointments? Who buys the thank you gifts? This is stuff that doesn't show up on chore charts, but absolutely takes up mental bandwidth. Often invisible, often underappreciated, and often falling to women by default. However, men have emotions too, but just don't say them out loud. Boys are still socialized to toughen up and man up, and that emotional bottling creates a culture of silence and burnout. Vulnerability isn't a weakness, but many men were never taught how to express it without shame. The result? Emotional needs go unmet and the cycle repeats. So is it really that bad if we just asked each other what we need? Instead of making assumptions and resentment, what if we just asked, what do you need help with around the house? A little clarity can go a long way. And most double standards fall apart when we trade blame for collaboration. So we've decoded the double standards, but what if the problem isn't just society's expectations? What if it's the fact that nobody knows what the rules even are anymore? We're going to talk about confusion, contradiction, and how to have actual human conversations in our next segment. But in the meantime, make it worth your wellness. Be sensitive, but not soft. Hot, but not high maintenance. We've reached a point where expectations are paradoxical. Men should open up, but not too much. Women should be empowered, but still be modest. The result? Constant performance anxiety. You're always too much or not enough, depending on who's watching. When people step outside the role, a man working in early childhood education, cue the suspicious glances. A woman in construction, cue the assumption that she's trying to prove something or that she's in the ladies. Society says be yourself, but only if that self fits the brand that we've approved. The traditional doesn't always mean better. People often defend gender roles as what's always worked, but history is full of things that worked while being wildly unequal. Instead of choosing roles based on gender, what if we chose them based on preference, skill, and mutual respect? So stop arguing and start talking. If gender roles are stressing your household, your relationship, or your brain, talk about it. Conversations don't have to turn into arguments if they start from a place of curiosity instead of control. Tools like shared calendars, chore swaps, honey-do lists, and check-ins can turn stress into strategy. And with that being said, thanks for being here, my wellness warriors. Make it worth your wellness.